Hey guys, Zort here. Today I am talking with Ferrariic, who is the creator of the bot detector plugin. This episode is meant to be consumed as a podcast. I will probably throw something on in the background, but I do recommend just listening to it while you play. Let me know what you think of this format, and I hope you're having a great day. Please enjoy the podcast. You are the creator of the bot detector plugin on RuneLite, correct?
Yep.
What exactly is the bot detector plugin, and how do players use it?
Basically, the bot detector plugin, the purpose of it is to identify bots in old school RuneScape, and it puts the power of bot detection in the player's hands, where previously players had to sort of guesstimate and say, hey, I think that player's a bot. I don't think that player's a bot, right? So it made things quite a bit difficult to, determine if a player is botting or not. Basically, I was sitting in Edgeville and I was writing names down on Notepad, and I was like, "Man, this sucks. This is taking forever." Right? I spent like a couple hours just sitting there writing the names of all these bots, sending them over to a forum post on the RuneScape forums. I was thinking maybe I could write a RuneLite plugin to collect the names of all the players around me, and then I'll go back later and I'll filter them out. I wrote a makeshift little plugin which wrote to a text file, and that worked just fine for general purposes. And I was like, okay, well, I actually don't want to check every name. I'm also kind of lazy there.
Yeah, right.
So maybe we could automate this a little bit. Right now, the whole workflow is basically stuff comes from the plugin to our node network, which then goes to our main database. The information of the names is then sent over to the high scores, where we scrape the names from the high scores to get the data. And additionally, from the plugin, we also take the location information, the timestamp it was sent at, a gear, and some other information as well. And we use all of that information then from the database to our machine learning repository, where we use a supervised learning algorithm. And actually, the newest model now has a binary sort of separation. So we separate it between real players and those that we think are bots.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the bots section, we then stratify those across all the different bot types that we believe could exist.
Could you explain why machine learning and that mass data sourcing is such a game changer as far as it pertains to being able to identify bots accurately?
You can use it to filter out or filter in a lot of different cases that you wouldn't otherwise look at. So by using ML or using AI, you can identify patterns that a human normally would be able to, or wouldn't be able to, rather, just by virtue of how you set up the system. So while an AI system may only be as useful or powerful as the person that designs it, what you can do is you can standardize sort of and say, yeah, I think these accounts match this specific profile and have this degree of confidence of being bots, right, or being whatever you're trying to evaluate.
What kinds of metrics is the plugin looking at to decide if someone is a bot? Like you talked about high scores, but
Mhm.
there are bots that engage in very high level content. Like let's take a bot that has access to Priff, for example. It's completed a
Right.
whole lot of quests at that point. It's got a wide variety of skills that have been trained. How is something more complicated like that compared to a bot that, say, is only trained woodcutting since the time it got off Tutorial Island? Um, what kind of factors are you looking at to tell if it's a real person, a gold farmer, or a bot?
Basically, it's just the if you look at the grouping of the accounts at the moment, since at this moment, this current system only uses the high scores to identify which accounts are botting and the groups that they belong to. So we try to say, okay, this group of accounts altogether has a high percentage of known bots, right, compared to our database, our reference. So by saying that, we could say, all right, these are accounts that belong to this group that exist. So I have made an experimental model which it used the name of the account, the name format of the account, the gear of the account that was being sent over, the high scores, the location, the timestamp that it was running at. So when we saw the account, and it used all of those different factors and sent it through a functional API with Keras uh, to sort of just give a binary output. Is the account botting or is it not botting? And we were able to actually get about 97% accuracy with that system.
compared
which is a bit
to
higher than our current system. So our current system's like 85%,
okay.
85 to 90%, depending on the day and depending on the account that we're looking for. Though I think with our newest system, that has gone up quite a bit.
What are some of the most surprising things that you've learned about old school bots during your time working on this project?
There are a lot of just different bots out there. It sounds silly to say, but there's so many different types that are being created. There's so many. The biggest issue about bots really isn't even the creativity that people go to for botting. It's just that there's a flood, right? So thankfully, Jagex has implemented a couple methods to reduce the amount of accounts that can be made in a set period. But really, just the sheer number of accounts that are coming in is incredible. So if I recall, when I last talked to some of the JMods here, I think it was Mod Trident. I think they banned like 30, 40, 50 accounts, 50K accounts a day. That's just with bots basically. And you can look at their metrics as well. I think they banned like a million or so in a month, 2 million, 3 million in a month.
Whew.
I think they banned just an absolutely absurd amount, and and so when you cut out the majority of the accounts, you cut out like 80, 90%, you're gonna have that 10% that remains, right? So what you're seeing in game is after you've made those huge cuts, and you still see a couple bots, right? Just because there's just a sheer like force of accounts that are being created, and then they get banned, of course, but just suicide bots in general.
Right.
Um, that's the most interesting thing because when I first made this, and I was sort of naive and more naive than I am now, but um, just not sure of the whole situation that was going on. I was like, oh, these bots aren't getting banned. What's going on, right? So I made the plugin, and then I realized after I talked to the JMods and I talked to more of the people in the community that they are getting banned in huge amounts. In fact, it's just that there are just so many being created that it's just a little overwhelming in that case.
We were talking on Twitter in a different discussion, and you told me that you're essentially seeing bots at all content in the game, even at the
Right.
highest levels. And a lot of that content requires major skill requirements and major gear investments. Take Tob, for example.
Mhm.
And then botting on those accounts is a huge risk because there's such time investment to create them, and the owners are potentially losing out on a lot of GP if they get banned. I'm really curious, how are those bots surviving long enough for that to be a profitable endeavor for the botters?
That's a good question. So, I'm not sure exactly how some of the accounts are being created, though. What I have to say is that you're not really guilty unless you commit a crime in the eyes of Jagex, right? So, if you're an account that has 40K or 20K or whatever Vorkath kills, right? Just an absurd amount of Vorkath kills, and you're not selling the gold, you're not going to get banned, right? The second you sell the gold, you'll get banned. But that's kind of how some of these gold farmers survive for so long. Now, the bots, I'm assuming that if they're not being flagged, if they're not being checked for, they're not being reported. I'm not sure how their system works exactly, but if they're not being flagged, as my guess, which is why you should always report them in game, they probably won't come up on their systems to be reviewed, and therefore they just keep surviving, they keep going. So
Hmm.
they might not fit a known pattern in Jagex's systems, is my best bet.
Right.
And this is all speculation. So by reporting them in game and by bringing it up to their attention, I think in that case, it should be a little bit more. You should be able to cut them down before they're able to survive for very long, and therefore, it makes it a little bit easier to take them out.
Yeah,
Um,
and there's kind of a myth that has gone on for a long time, and this is going to sound like an incredibly stupid thing to bring up in the middle of our conversation now, but just to clear it up, like reporting someone for botting actually does something, right? Like Jagex
oh
is
yeah,
reviewing that information. It's not getting thrown in a folder for a rainy day, correct?
yep, yeah, yeah, yeah. The reports all go somewhere, and I've confirmed that with the JMODs that they're all being looked after. So, even in any reporting system, you're going to have people that don't report well, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is you might have a lot of players that just think an account's a bot, but they don't have anything to back it up, right? It's just a guy being quiet. He's just chilling, playing the game. Looks a little silly, but he's playing the game. And uh, they'll report him as a bot, and that kind of messes up the accuracy of the average player. So I did ask the JMods, what's your accuracy look like for some of these accounts that are being reported, and they're like, it's not very good, to be honest. The players report a lot of accounts that aren't bots, though they do get some bots, right? Being able to report them does bring them up to attention, which means that it's more likely that the account will eventually get banned, assuming that all the other reports are accurate as well.
You
It's kind of like
said
a tier list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said that you send reports over to Jagex, or your trying to think of the best way to phrase this, but something along the lines of you send reports over to Jagex if the confidence is 95% or greater, or
Yeah,
that's at least when you feel like it's a worthwhile point to send that flagged account over to Jagex.
exactly.
What is the confidence interval that Jagex requires in order to ban someone that they think is a bot?
Oh, I have no idea, unfortunately.
I really wish they'd given you that information,
Yeah,
because
that would be nice.
as much as I would love to live in the universe where I think false bans never happen,
Mhm.
I believe that there are false bans. In fact, we've seen them, right? We've seen Eevescape get banned live on stream one time for
Mhm.
macroing. We've seen Solo Mission get banned in a recording for macroing. So we have documented cases where this is happening. If you were to maybe float an estimate out there, what do you think the accuracy is for bot bans as they're being issued by Jagex?
I mean, I think based upon raw numbers, let me think about that real quick. I mean, they ban like 50, 60 accounts a day, 30, 50, 30 to 50 from what I recall.
1,000, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
1,000, excuse me. Yeah. Like 30 to 50,000. Got like a handful of accounts that might be false positives. Though, to be honest, while some of the content creators, right, those accounts definitely false positives, and there are some accounts out there as well that are false positives. A lot of the accounts that are requesting appeals, the users know that they botted,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They know that they've broken the rules. So you kind of also have to filter that out of the way.
I'm
I
with you
would say,
100% on that one.
yeah, I would say that majority, like a vast majority. I can't give you a number, but I would say like vast majority of the accounts that do get banned are correct, right? And there's probably a very small fraction that aren't correct, like in comparison from the numbers that I've seen so far.
Yeah,
So
I think it certainly gets inflated with the appeals on Reddit. And I mean, you see it with a lot of the smackdowns, right? If a JMod
yeah,
replies, it's something like
it's like
95% of the time, it's a confirmation that they botted. So you really can't use the Reddit appeals as a metric. But there have been those documented cases where people have definitely been falsely banned. And that's concerning when a company doesn't have very good customer support to be able to reach out for a second look, basically, at the account.
right. It does come down to unfortunately sort of like a popularity appeal, right? And just
Yeah.
getting eyes in the right position. Just because there's such a sheer number of accounts that cry wolf and say, yeah, my account's been banned. I didn't do anything. And then you look at their toolbar, and it's got like 40 different macro programs, and so you gotta watch out and say, yeah, a lot of the stuff that these guys, the JMods, are checking up on. I mean, the guys know that they messed up. They just want to get free with it.
Yeah, it's a Hail
But
Mary, right?
yeah, it's a Hail Mary. They're like, shit, I lost my 40, my account with like 5 bill on it. I'm gonna try to go for an appeal.
Yeah. Do
Yeah, it's
they,
like,
out of curiosity, do they give you any information about like wealth band on some of these accounts that you've reported in the same way that they give some of that info to Sir Pugger?
I feel like we might be able to request that, but it's never been a concern for us, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess from a modeling perspective, that wouldn't play a huge part. Though it would be really interesting from a modeling perspective to understand the accounts that are being used as mules. Because I guarantee they're not all level 3 accounts, right? I'm sure you
No,
have level
very
80 accounts, level 126 accounts.
yeah. A lot of the accounts that are mules, from what we've seen so far, they just look like normal accounts. To be honest, if they're gonna trade a botted account, send it over to their seller, they just look like normal accounts. They usually have been slept for a while, arrested for a while.
And I guess at the end of the day, that's what you'd want with your mule, right? You'd want it to look like
Yeah.
the most ordinary, or maybe even you have a account that you have played up to a certain point, or it was a compromised account and you're transferring over to there so it looks more legitimate. Just a quick break from the interview. If you're enjoying today's content, please consider leaving a like or subscribing for more bot, cybersecurity, and Ultimate Iron Man related content. Thank you. When you started on this project initially and you've been communicating with Jagex, was there any hesitancy to participate with a third party on a topic that essentially they've been very reluctant to divulge any information about? They're super hush hush when it comes to botting. So I kind of have to imagine there was some level of resistance when you came to them and said, hey, we want you to send us information about bots, basically.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, what we're doing with them is we just send them the names, right? And they'll tell us which ones are bots and which aren't bots. That's the way it's been going for a little while. We normally just send them tip offs and stuff, and we'll check the high scores to make sure that the accounts that we've sent over are being banned. And also we DM the different JMods that are involved in the project so far.
I really wish they would introduce some sort of support for like high scores changes or microservice changes, because obviously you have a bot that's very dependent on scraping high scores data. I run the UIM Twitter bot, which is
Yeah.
very dependent on high scores data, and I get no visibility into when changes are coming. Like
Let
my bot
let
just
me
blows
tell
up.
you, let me tell you something. The Hiscores API is straight garbage.
Oh, I know.
It is the worst API I have ever seen in my life. You've used it. You know how bad it is. You
Yeah,
send a name over and you get a string of arrays. They're not even titled. They have no title, nothing at all. It's
correct.
just negative ones and ones. And it's just a headache. It's so bad.
Yeah,
What I wish, just send a JSON query, just send anything. Just put the title there. Say what the name of the content is and the number, and that's all I need, right? But I have no idea what all these negative ones and ones are when they're not labeled, and when a boss comes out, a new boss comes out, the whole system like crashes effectively.
yeah.
With the scraper just shuts down. Like, man, it's a bad time. So like if a boss comes out, we have to get prepared. Our system, we put in a new column in the database. We'll basically readjust the scraper to see, okay, alphabetically, this boss should be here. And what's really funny is sometimes on the high scores, they'll just flip the names of the positions of
Yes, Scorpio and
they'll
Scatizo.
just flip them. And it's like, why? If you just put it as a JSON, you're good to go. So we've tried that before. We've actually tried to talk to them, a couple of different people, and they're like, "Yeah, we're probably not going to fix it." To be honest, I think
Great.
I asked Mod Ash as well on Twitter, and he's like, "Yeah, I think the tech guys aren't available to fix that right now." I'm like, "Dude, please,
You
I'm
know,
dying here."
the API, as you mentioned, is a total piece of flaming hot garbage, I can confirm.
Yeah.
But even if they had something like a channel in the content creator Discord where they're like, hey, we're going to announce a new boss or a mini game, or not even announce, like this is the release date, and they give that to us a week ahead of time, that would help dramatically with at least being able to mostly prepare. If you're
That would be
listening,
really nice.
Jagex, get on it. Come on,
Please,
Modash.
we're begging.
Modash
Well, it
is
could be
irresponsible.
anyone.
Yeah.
I'll take anyone, man. It's a lot of different community, and the thing is I wish that there was a okay, well, more about this part specifically. It's really funny. They updated the policy on the API, excuse me, but it reduced our scrape rate by quite a bit. And we have a couple different proxies that we use to scrape the high scores to get our data out. We scrape like 5 million names a day. So we are actually like the number one community group. Like we scrape the most names on the high scores out of anyone else. Out of between like CML, Temple OSRS, basically anybody else, we scrape the most names per day, per like hour effectively, because you just have a whole system set up to take data from the high scores, process it into our systems, use that data effectively, retrain our model, and then send it back out to the users of the plugin. So like any small minor change is like disastrous for everything that could occur.
Right.
So if you flip a skill for some reason, or you flip a boss, or you flip anything, you'll end up with a model that has no idea what's going on anymore. Like it's just like, dude, what do you mean? According to the system currently, this account, like because what we do is we take the latest sort of high score data. So we'll say, all right, this account was last scraped on this day. It's been banned now. We know it's a bot. We'll use that data, right? Now, if a flip happens or something else happens like that, if you flip anything like that, you'll have crazy just errors just occurring. So that's one thing. But yeah, I think we talked to the JMods before, and they're like, we recommend you reducing the amount that you scrape per day. And so we've tried that. We've tried a couple different methods, but they weren't effective for maintaining what we needed for the project. Yeah, it's been an interesting sort of situation there.
So another question about sort of the underbelly, I guess, of your plugin. Are
Okay.
people flooding your system with false reports, essentially trying to DOS you?
We've had, okay, this is very funny, kind of sad but funny. We've had one guy who tried that out, right? I mean, we got rid of it quite easily, and we've now implemented a lot of security checks to reduce the amount of just nonsense coming through. And effectively, it's worked so far as I know, unless someone's listening to this interview right now and they're just laughing to themselves.
With the insight that you have, what do you make of the current state of botting in Old School as it stands today?
It's just, I mean, in my eyes, there's three types of people that bot, right? There's people that do it for money because their situation doesn't afford them, the luxury of not botting. They have to do something to make money for their family. So I'm not really concerned about, those types of people, right? There's people that do it for fun, which is kind of cool. You want to learn how to make systems work. You want to sort of figure things out and just, have a good old time, learn things. And then there's people that just do it maliciously, where they'll make a bot that will harass people, or they'll make a bot that will just sort of lock people out of content and lock people out of certain skills. And it's just like, why? What's the purpose of that? So that's little more scripting, but yeah, there are people that just do bots for different reasons. So I don't think that's going to change too much in the future. I think people are just going to be that way for a while. The best thing that can be done is to improve the systems that are created to detect such players, and maybe incorporate some like text checking, like NLP,
Yeah.
to see if we can detect accounts that are being malicious via text as well. There's a
And
lot of
that
different
is
things we can do.
exactly the follow up question that I had, which is that is your script, or script isn't the right word because it's far more than just a script at this point. Is your plugin also detecting like gambling bots, clan chat spam
Nope.
bots? So they're flying free unless Jagex picks them up at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason is we don't want to touch text at all. The reason is because private text could contain personal information. So you could have someone just wanting to talk to their friend, having a good old time, right? They're just talking the GE. They might mention something in real life though, right? Now, if you had a plugin that picks up that information, you now have stored private information, right? And I feel like that's going to break some laws or something like that.
And it's
But
not de-anonymized because
yeah,
if you're picking it up to ban someone, it has to be associated with a player.
yep, exactly. And then more on the serious side, what if you have someone that has like a threat to life, or like a threat to, do some crime, or uh, something, right? Now you're a witness to the situation. Do you report it? Do you not report it? Of course you should report it, but who do you report it to, and what should you do, right? So being able to log text and log things that are more personal that way is not really in the scope of our project, or really in the foreseeable future of the project, just
Yeah,
because it's kind of dangerous to do something like that.
I'm with you.
So
It's a whole nother can
yeah.
of worms.
Yeah, it's much easier to say, yeah, that guy looks like a bot because his levels look funky and there's no personal information attached to it. So, you scrape the data, it's not that big of a deal. The account looks like a bot, doesn't look like a bot. The JMods can check it out. No big deal, whatever. The second you start sort of taking people's public chat records, even though they're public, it becomes a big problem. You don't want to really touch that unless you have authorized permission from the user. At least, where I'm from, you have to have permission of both parties to record the conversation, right?
Yeah,
Um,
save that one for the lawyers, maybe.
yeah, I'm not really a fan of going to court. I've never been, but I don't want to be there. So I think I'm good to
Understandable.
go. Yeah.
Do you think that there are other steps that Jagex could take to combat botting that they're not taking today?
Um, yeah. So they know which accounts, which what third party plugins or what third party sort of clients you're using. Like that part's easy. They can see all that. They can see everything there. Um, what they could probably do is just straight up ban all those accounts. But there is an issue where a lot of people just straight up don't know that like and people just have no idea that those clients are against the terms of service, right? So if they ban everyone using those third party clients immediately, you're going to get a lot of people who are going to then start complaining and say, "Hey, I didn't know, right? I had no idea." Because the developers of these separate third party plugins would say, "Yeah, we think that it's within the rules. You should use our third party plugin, right?" And then why shouldn't the player when the third party plugin effectively does the game for them, you know? So if someone's going to download a third party plugin that does the inferno for them, really, and then they find out later that it was against the terms of service because they see things like, "Oh, RuneLight's okay, maybe this one's okay as well." All it does is show me where the prayers should go. Effectively, Guitar Hero Inferno. Here, I'll
Yeah.
post a GIF here real quick. Bet you a good one. Let me get it. Yeah, there you go. Guitar Hero Inferno.
Yeah, I have seen that. That is just
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it's honestly great. It's really funny. But yeah, if they just banned all third party uh clients that were against terms of service, you might get like a lot of them, a good amount of them, to be honest.
Jagex's work on the Steam client, I think that's reaching a point where they're going to bring that to have all of the features that RuneLight has today, or very close to that point. And then once people are comfortable with the stability and the reliability of the client, they're going to come out and say, hey, we're banning all third party clients. Do you see that as a step that they may take in the future as well?
Yeah, I feel like they could, and just because they're still pouring resources into it and they're still pulling for like the HG plugin stuff. Like for example, I made the Discord server for the 117 HD plugin just to make sure everything was good. So um, I do have an idea, I guess, of what they're trying to do there. I mean, I think that effectively in the future they probably will shut it down, like shut down all third party plugins because the thing is you as a company, right? You don't want a. It looks kind of bad to investors to have a third party group make your most popular client. So it's like imagine you make a company and you've got a client. It's not very good and you have another group that's your customer base creates a client just to use your own product. It's a security issue. It's a lot of different issues there. So I'm guessing from Jagex's perspective is that they want to shut down all of the third party clients in the future. Um, and with that, they'll probably be able to have a little bit more security in terms of botting, in terms of rule breaking. Uh, and it's kind of good in a way. The downside is that there's a group of players that exist, such as myself, where creating content for the game might not be in the same way that other people create content. So I probably wouldn't show a boss log of me doing 1,000 KC of a certain boss, right? I probably wouldn't do a lot of different things. But the way I do my content is I create something that the community can use as a functional product, right?
Yeah, kind of what you're tiptoeing around is community plugins are almost certain to go away if Jagex bans third party clients.
Yeah, it's very likely. But what I think that they could do, and thankfully this is a good thing on Steam, and I'm glad that they're using Steam, is that the Steam Workshop exists, right? So I'm really hoping that Jagex will open up the Steam Workshop to be used by community users, right? And with that, you should be able to. I'm hoping that you should be able to install like third-party plugins via the Steam Workshop. That's my hope, that they'll do something like that.
Yeah.
Because then what they could do is they could say, okay, we have a JMod moderator team that looks at the different plugins. Do they break the rules? Do they not break the rules? Okay, this one's good to go. Allow it into the workshop, and other players can download it and have a good old time with it. That's kind of the goal, I would say, is if you're shifting over to the C++ client, okay, do so. It's actually quite a nice client from what I've played so far. But think of the community when you do something like that, and really consider maybe just allowing the Steam Workshop to be used by the community, and I think that'd be quite good because the RuneLite community is a very tight knit group that, I mean, they've been doing this forever, right? Actually, I'm looking at their Discord right now. They got 114K players online. I'm
Wow.
pretty sure it's literally everyone that's playing the game minus like 2% of the player base.
Yeah, I went on the
So
OS Buddy website for that video I mentioned, and there were 1,200 or 1,300 people online at the time, which I thought was a lot higher than I
yeah,
expected.
I mean, since like the inception of gaming, since anyone has made a game, people will mod the game. That's just a fact of life. You look at Minecraft, you look at any game in the world, you'll see someone has created a mod for it. My favorite game at the moment is Squad, right? It's a first-person FPS with team-based shooting and everything. That game has mods. Every game that I have played so far has had some sort of mods installed. If it has like a dedicated community. I think RuneScape is the most dedicated community that exists at the moment. Maybe WoW is a good second, right? But I mean, they're not going anywhere. So the best thing you could do is help them out, let them have access to the Steam Workshop, make sure that the accounts, whatever they're trying to post there, is within the game rules, and I think that's fair. I think that's pretty fair then.
I agree. I hope that's what they do. I really do. Are you hopeful about the state of botting in old school going forward, or do you think that this is a problem that will not only continue, but progressively get worse?
I don't think it's getting worse just because Jagex is really locking down and discovering new technologies that can be used to shut down botting. I think it's either steady at the moment or getting reduced just because of all the restrictions and sanctions that they're putting in. What uh, what I would hope for is that, once the Steam client comes out, that it should be much better. They can just ban everything else, right? And that should be quite useful for reducing botting by a huge margin. Is what I hope. I do know that some people have injected the Steam client with
Yes.
scripts. Yeah, so that's already been done. But I'm hoping that maybe Jagex has some way of catching those guys and handling them, either catching them or maybe involving like some like easy anti cheat. Right? I don't know. We'll see. It's a long way in the future until they figure that out.
It is. Yeah, I agree. And if nothing else, right, like I don't know to what extent you've worked with C++ and Java, but C++ is a significant increase in difficulty to work with. So,
Yeah,
you
I've
know, if nothing else,
my
people aren't going to be good enough to figure that out like they have been with the Java client on a mass scale, in my opinion.
yeah, my relative forte is in Python. I suck at Java. Maybe I could get by there with what I know now in Python, just because of the concepts are kind of overlapping. But I've
Yeah.
I've looked at C++. No, I'm not going to touch it. No, I'm good. I'm sure that if we do switch over to that, I think Cyborger has experience with it. If they do open up the Steam Workshop, um, I think that worst case scenario, all the system is really is sending over names to the database and then sending back a short response upon query. So it's nothing too serious, nothing crazy. There have been a lot of plugins though that I've seen on RuneLite which are just complete overhauls, which make it a
Yeah.
little bit more difficulty with such a change.
Would you explain to the audience how they can download the bot detector plugin and also where they can find you on social media?
At Ferrariic OSRS on Twitter, and to install the bot detector plugin, you'll go to your RuneLite settings. When you go to the top right, you'll see a wrench called configuration. Click on the wrench. Then scroll down to the bottom where it says Plugin Hub. Click on Plugin Hub, and go type in bot detector on the menu, right? And you should see bot detector Ferrariic. You can just install that. Another thing to note is that we do have anonymous mode by default in the plugin, because while we don't send the names over to Jagex of who reports who, because there's a lot of overlap, what we do is we may want to have players that want to install the plugin but don't want us to they don't want us to know that they've installed it, right? So it's like a safety feature on by default where we don't know who's installed the plugin until they turn off anonymous mode. And you can turn it off, and if you turn it off, what happens is that it'll send your name plus the name of the account that you've sent over as you're walking around the game. And then we'll also know who's sending it over, so we can send back the relevant data of, yeah, you've collected this many accounts, and these many accounts that you've seen have been banned. So it's a nice little safety feature that we've involved as well.
That's really cool. Is there any chance in the future you could have like a high scores page on your website for like most correctly flagged bots or something like that?
That's been a requested feature. Unfortunately, I'm terrible at HTML, or I'm just awful at anything web related. Front
Yeah.
end development is like nothing for me. But we've had a couple people approach us for the project, and if you're willing to approach us, let me know to work on the website. So right now it's super bare bones. Don't go to the website; it sucks. But install the plugin; that'll be good to go.
You heard it here, folks. If you're a HTML and CSS wizard, reach out to Ferrariic on Twitter. Going to include his Twitter link in the description below. Ferrariic, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't thank you enough for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been a great time as well. If you have any other questions, just let me know.
I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Let me know if you think I should do more of these and maybe who you'd be interested in hearing me talk to. Any likes or subscriptions on your way out would be very much appreciated. I have a lot more cybersecurity, bot, and Ultimate Iron Man content coming soon. Stay kind, healthy, and happy, and I will see you next time.